Centuries before England existed, before the crown, before the myth of a united Ireland, there was once a kingdom so powerful that monks whispered its name with both fear and admiration. A kingdom whose warriors rode through morning fog like ghosts, whose scholars shaped the English language, whose kings ruled from the northern mountains to the heart of the island. Yet today, most people can't even pronounce its name. A forgotten English superpower. A realm that once dominated the island. A kingdom lost to time. Welcome to the rise, and mysterious fall, of Northumbria. And before we begin this epic journey, make sure you hit that like button, tell me where in the world you're watching from, and subscribe to Dude Historian so you never miss our deep dives into the hidden past. Imagine Britain in the 6th century. Not the Britain of castles, knights, and kings you know. No, this was a wild, fractured land. Rome had abandoned the island. Chaos filled the vacuum. Tribal kingdoms rose and fell like sparks in a bonfire. And into this storm came the Angles, migrants crossing the cold North Sea, settling the rugged lands that would one day become northern England and southern Scotland. They didn't arrive quietly. They carved out two fierce kingdoms. Bernicia, ruled from the volcanic cliffs of Bamburgh. Deira, controlling the rich farmlands around modern-day York. Two rivals. Two cultures. Two warlike territories. And yet, fate would push them together. This merging, this unexpected alliance, would create a kingdom that would shape the island for over 300 years. North of the River Humber. North plus Humber. Northumbria. If you're enjoying this so far, remember to smash that like button. It really helps the channel grow. To understand Northumbria's rise, you have to understand one man. A king so feared, so ambitious, that chroniclers compared him to a storm. Æthelfrith. The first true king of a united Northumbria. He fused Bernicia and Deira not through peace, but through pure dominance. Æthelfrith crushed his rivals, expanded territory, and controlled the crucial east coast sea routes. Northumbria became a gateway between the North Sea, Scotland, and the emerging kingdoms to the south. He turned his warriors into a machine of conquest. Their long, curved shields locked in deadly formation. Their boar-crested helmets shining in foggy dawn. The island learned a new word. Northumbria. But power creates enemies. And soon, the kingdom would face the greatest crisis in its history. Before we get there, let me know in the comments, have you ever visited Northern England? And don't forget to subscribe so you never miss these deep dives. The true Golden Age began with a king whose name still echoes across the island. King Oswald. If Æthelfrith built the kingdom, Oswald made it legendary. After years in exile, Oswald returned with an army of hardened warriors. And with him came a new religion spreading through Europe, Christianity. Northumbria didn't just become powerful. It became enlightened. Under Oswald and later King Oswiu, Northumbria transformed into the intellectual heart of the English-speaking world. Monasteries like Lindisfarne and Jarrow became the Silicon Valley of the early Middle Ages. Here, scribes copied ancient texts. Here, Bede wrote the first great history of England. Here, artists created the breathtaking Lindisfarne Gospels, a masterpiece so rich it looks like it was painted with liquid light. Northumbria became more than a kingdom. It became a beacon of knowledge. People traveled across Europe to learn from its scholars. Kings sent gifts. Priests traveled oceans to visit its libraries. For nearly a century, Northumbria was the power of the island. Drop a like if you're still with me. This next part is where things get dramatic. But every golden age casts a shadow, and Northumbria faced two shadows. First shadow, internal betrayal. Northumbria's royal line was a family feud turned political nightmare. Brothers betrayed brothers. Cousins fought cousins. Assassinations, coups, exiles. The kingdom's throne was a revolving door of ambition. The people wondered, how can a kingdom stand if its kings cannot trust each other? But the second shadow. That was the shadow that ended everything. Second shadow, the Vikings. In 793, a storm rolled in from the North Sea. Longships gliding across the waves like silent knives. Lindisfarne, the heart of Northumbria's spirituality, was attacked. Monks dragged out. Treasures taken. The island burned. Europe would remember this moment as the beginning of the Viking Age. Northumbria would remember it as the beginning of the end. If you're watching from any country with Viking history, let me know in the comments below. Northumbria didn't collapse overnight. No. It fell like a dying campfire. First the bright flame, then the smoke, then the slow fading glow. The Vikings didn't just raid. They conquered. They took York, the beating heart of the kingdom, and turned it into Jórvík, one of the most important Norse cities in Europe. Without its capital, without its scholars, without unity, Northumbria broke apart. Southern kings rose while Northumbrian kings fell into obscurity. By the time England emerged as a unified country, Northumbria existed only in old manuscripts and fading memories. Here's the part most people never knew. Northumbria may have fallen, but it changed the world. The English language grew from Northumbrian dialects. The greatest English historian, Bede, lived there. Lindisfarne's art shaped European Christian design. The boundaries of early Britain were carved by Northumbrian kings, and the cultural identity of the entire north of England still echoes their influence. The kingdom is gone, but its fingerprints are everywhere. And now, you're one of the rare people who truly know its story. If you've enjoyed this journey so far, hit that like button, subscribe to Dude Historian, and comment below where in the world you're watching from. I love hearing from all of you. To truly understand why Northumbria became so powerful, you must first understand the land itself. Northern Britain was not gentle. It was carved by ice and wind. Steep cliffs, vast moors, unpredictable seas, forests thick enough to swallow whole armies. The Romans had struggled here. The Britons fought to keep it. Then the Angles arrived, and they saw not a wasteland, but a fortress. The rugged terrain shaped Northumbrian culture. It created warriors who were resilient, adaptable, and unafraid of hardship. It created leaders who understood the value of strongholds and alliances. And most importantly, it created a people who knew that survival meant unity. Bernicia and Deira could not thrive alone. Separated, they were vulnerable. United, they could command the island. That hard geography became the kingdom's first great teacher. If you're loving this deeper exploration, make sure you tap that like button. It keeps this channel growing and tells me you want more long-form history like this. Now let's return to the man who turned two rival kingdoms into one unstoppable force. Æthelfrith. To modern ears, the name sounds obscure, but in his time, he was one of the most feared leaders in Britain. Chroniclers didn't describe him as a king. They describe him as a storm, a force of nature, a man whose presence changed the direction of the island. Æthelfrith understood something crucial. Northumbria could dominate Britain if, and only if, it controlled three pressure points: the eastern coastline, for trade and communication; the central river valleys, for agriculture and population; the northern frontier, against the Scots and Picts. So he waged a triple-front strategy. He crushed the Britons in the west at the legendary Battle of Chester, cutting off Wales from the northern Britons. He pushed deep into Scottish territory, establishing dominance over the tribes beyond Hadrian's Wall. He strengthened Deira by taking York, binding the southern lands to his rule. Under Æthelfrith, Northumbria transformed from a pair of small kingdoms into a rising superpower. But his ambition made him enemies. Enemies within his own family. Enemies among southern kings. Enemies among exiled princes who waited for revenge. Remember to comment where you're watching from. I love seeing history lovers from every continent join these stories. The return of a prince, and a new faith. When Æthelfrith was finally defeated and killed, it wasn't the end of his legacy, but the beginning of a transformation. His enemy, the returning exile, would become one of Britain's most beloved kings. Oswald of Northumbria. Oswald is often remembered as a saint, but the truth is far more dramatic. He was raised in exile in the Gaelic kingdom of Dalriada. He grew up among warriors, poets, monks, a mixture of steel and spirituality. And when he returned to reclaim his homeland, he came not only with an army, but with a mission. Oswald brought Christianity back with him. But not the Roman form that dominated the south. He brought the Celtic tradition. Humble, wandering, poetic, rooted in nature and community. The combination was explosive. Oswald united his people through both strength and faith. He built alliances. He brought in monks from Iona. He established Lindisfarne, the island monastery that would become the heart of English Christianity. Under Oswald, Northumbria didn't just rule with might. It ruled with meaning. And viewers, if this legendary comeback story inspires you as much as it inspires me, hit that like button right now. It helps more people discover these forgotten histories, the age of scholars, and the birth of English culture. After Oswald's reign came a period that historians call the Northumbrian Renaissance. Renaissance might sound like an exaggeration, but it isn't. In an age when much of Europe struggled to preserve knowledge, Northumbria became a lighthouse of learning. Imagine walking into the monastery of Wearmouth Jarrow around the year 700. The smell of parchment, rows of scribes copying texts by lamplight, visitors from across the continent whispering in admiration, and in the corner, a small boy, quiet, curious, observant, who would one day become the greatest scholar of early medieval Europe, the Venerable Bede. Bede wrote works on theology, science, poetry, and history, but his masterpiece, the Ecclesiastical History of the English People, is one of the foundational texts of English identity. It's because of Bede that we even know the names of many ancient kings. He gave England a shared story. He turned small kingdoms into one connected past. Northumbria wasn't just a political superpower. It was an intellectual one. And this is where your viewers lean closer. Because the idea of England, the concept of a unified nation, began here. Let me know in the comments if you've ever heard of Bede before this video. Many people haven't, and yet he shaped so much of what we know. The art that brightened a dark age. While scholars wrote, artists created masterpieces. The monks at Lindisfarne produced the Lindisfarne Gospels, a book so beautiful it looks like it belongs in a fantasy movie. The colors, the geometry, the knotwork, the details so fine it would challenge modern magnification. This was art created while Vikings roamed the seas, while kingdoms fought and coalitions shifted. And yet the Northumbrians built beauty in the middle of chaos. This was their golden age, a time when culture and creativity shined brighter than war. Northumbria was not just a kingdom. It was a memory immortalized in ink. If you're still enjoying this journey, don't forget to subscribe. We are only just entering the most dramatic chapters of their story. The cracks begin to show. A kingdom too powerful for itself. Every empire rises, and every empire is tested from within. As Northumbria grew stronger, its kings became more ambitious. But ambition is a double-edged sword. Civil wars began to erupt. Royal families split into rival branches. Assassinations became tools of politics. Kings were crowned, dethroned, murdered, replaced, sometimes all within a decade. The people watched with fear. The monks wrote with sorrow. The bards whispered that the kingdom was stretching too far, too fast. Northumbria was shining brightly, but bright stars burn out quickly. And while these internal battles raged, a greater threat was gathering across the sea. A threat that would change the identity of Britain forever. The horizon is calm. The waves gentle. The seagulls drifting lazily overhead. And then, tiny shapes appear. At first like shadows, then like teeth rising from the water. Longships. Silent. Swift. Precise. The Vikings had come before, but never like this. Lindisfarne. The attack shocked the entire continent. Not only because it was violent, but because it was symbolic. They didn't raid a marketplace. They raided the spiritual heart of England. They struck the kingdom at its soul. And suddenly the world knew. Northumbria was vulnerable. The monks of Lindisfarne said the sky went dark that morning. Not because clouds rolled in, but because death arrived on wings of iron. The longships glided silently into the shallow waters. Dragons carved on their prows. Oars dipping in perfect rhythm. Warriors standing shoulder to shoulder, like shadows cast by the sea. Northumbria had faced enemies before, but nothing like this. These raiders weren't here for land. They weren't here for politics. They weren't here for alliances. They came for wealth. They came for chaos. They came to carve their own saga into the bones of the island. The monks heard their horn first. A low, bone-deep note that felt like it came from the underworld. Then the screams began. Lindisfarne was not defended. Because no one imagined it needed defending. It was a place of peace. A sanctuary. But on that day, it became a battlefield. The Vikings stormed the island, tearing through the monastery, smashing icons, stealing gold, dragging monks from their cells. Some were killed. Some were taken as slaves. Some simply disappeared. Word spread like wildfire. Europe gasped. And Northumbria. Northumbria realized it had awakened a monster. If this part shocked you, drop a like. It helps the video reach more history lovers like you. In the years that followed, Northumbria fought to survive. Internal rivalries grew sharper. Power shifted between nobles like sand in a storm. Monks prayed harder. Warriors sharpened their swords. Kings strengthened coastal defenses. But the Vikings were not a single blow. They were a wave. And waves don't stop when they taste blood. They returned again and again. Raiding villages. Attacking monasteries. Ravaging the coastline. Northumbria, once the intellectual heart of the island, slowly became a kingdom on edge. A land where every sunrise brought new uncertainty. And yet, even in crisis, the Northumbrians refused to break. Northumbria's greatest weakness was not the Vikings. It was itself. Its royal families had long been divided into two powerful dynasties. The Bernician line. The Deira line. Both claimed the right to rule. Both believed destiny favored them. Both used alliances, marriages, assassinations, and clever politics to capture the throne. The result? A revolving door of kings. Some ruled only months. One ruled for only 27 days. Another fled the throne only to return years later like a ghost reclaiming his crown. The people watched these battles with weary eyes. How could a kingdom stand strong when its rulers tore each other apart? When you look at Northumbria's fall, remember this. Great kingdoms rarely die from a single enemy. They die from many small cuts. Let me know in the comments if you enjoy these deeper political twists. I can always expand them further in future videos. And then, Britain felt the earth shake. 865 AD. A Viking force unlike anything the island had seen descended upon England. Not raiders. Not small warbands. But a unified multi-tribal coalition. The Great Heathen Army. They didn't come to steal. They came to conquer. Their leaders, Halfdan, Ubba, Ivar the Boneless, marched across the island with terrifying precision. The southern kingdoms fell swiftly. Mercia negotiated desperately. Wessex fought for survival. And then they turned north. To Northumbria, the fractured kingdom. The once mighty power desperately trying to stand tall. York fell. Northumbrian kings were captured or killed. The royal lines collapsed. The capital became Jórvík, a Norse stronghold. It wasn't just a military defeat. It was a cultural earthquake. Northumbria, the great kingdom that once ruled the island, was now a Viking province. This chapter gives people chills. If it hit you hard, go ahead and hit that like button so more viewers get to see this part of history. Even after the Great Heathen Army's conquest, Northumbria did not disappear overnight. A small fragment, known as the Kingdom of Bamburgh, survived in the north. Harder, smaller, but still proud. These last Northumbrians guarded the frontier like wolves refusing to leave the mountain. They fought Viking rulers. They negotiated with Scottish kings. They protected monasteries desperately trying to preserve knowledge. It was a fragile existence, but it kept Northumbrian identity alive. Meanwhile, York grew into a hybrid city, part Norse, part English, part trade hub for the entire northern world. It was chaos, and yet it was strangely vibrant. This was not the Northumbria of Oswald or Bede. This was a kingdom living on borrowed time. Yet its people refused to forget who they were. Tell me in the comments, do you think you could survive in a world like this? A world where borders changed monthly, and cultures crashed into each other like waves against cliffs? By the 10th century, England was beginning to unify under the kings of Wessex. One by one, the old Anglo-Saxon kingdoms, Kent, Sussex, East Anglia, Mercia, fell or merged into a rising English identity. Northumbria held out longer than most, but eventually, its northern fragments submitted to the English crown. The Viking rulers of York were defeated. A new political order emerged, and the name Northumbria quietly faded from political maps. But listen closely, because this is important. Northumbria did not die. It transformed. It became the north of England. Its dialects shaped modern English. Its monasteries preserved learning that would influence Europe. Its history formed the backbone of northern identity. The kingdom may have vanished, but its spirit still walks the streets of York, still whispers across the moors, still lives in every English history book. You are hearing a story that most of the world has forgotten, but you are restoring it by watching this video. If you're still here, hit that subscribe button. I promise you, more forgotten kingdoms are coming. Now we step into the part of the story that ties everything together, the part viewers love most. Most people never realize how much Northumbria shaped their world. Here's how. 1. The English language. The Northumbrian dialect heavily influenced early English. Many modern words trace their roots there. 2. The Christian identity of England. Lindisfarne, Jarrow, and Wearmouth were the spiritual engines that shaped early English Christianity. 3. Literature and scholarship. People call Bede the father of English history. And he lived, wrote, and taught in Northumbria. 4. Art that still astonishes. The Lindisfarne Gospels remain one of the most stunning medieval works ever created. 5. A cultural identity that lives on. Northern accents, northern pride, northern traditions. So much goes back to this forgotten kingdom. 6. Historical lessons. Northumbria teaches us that power is fragile, that knowledge can outlast empires, and that even forgotten kingdoms can shape nations. The individual kings and queens, the battles that shaped borders, the monasteries and their secrets, the Viking Northumbrian blending of cultures, the mysteries historians still can't agree on, the everyday lives of Northumbrian villagers, the legends born in this era, the archaeological discoveries revealing hidden truths, the unsolved murders and political betrayals, and the final echoes of a kingdom that refused to be forgotten. Before we return to kings and battles, we must step into the lives of the ordinary Northumbrians. Because kingdoms are not built by crowns. They are built by people. Imagine walking into a Northumbrian village around the year 700. The air smells of wood smoke. You hear the clang of iron from the smithy. Shepherds move sheep across the hillside fields. Children chase each other between timber houses. Dogs sleep near hearth fires. Goats nibble at hay stacked under a slanted wooden roof. Life here was tough, but vibrant. People woke before dawn, prayed, worked the fields, and gathered in the evenings to share food and stories. Men hunted, fished, built, and fought. Women ran the homes, brewed ale, wove cloth, managed food stores, and often held enormous influence in local communities. And children? They were taught early to help the family survive. This wasn't a world of knights and polished armor. This was a world of rough wool, iron knives, sturdy axes, and community. But despite hardship, the Northumbrians had something rare. Identity. They believed their kingdom mattered. They believed their land was sacred. And they believed they were part of something greater than themselves. If this deep look into daily life is interesting to you, drop a comment. I want to know what era of history fascinates you the most. Now, we return to the rulers, not the kings you memorize for exams, but the ones whose choices shape centuries. Let's explore the 5 most defining kings of Northumbria. 1. Æthelfrith, the founder. We've met him already, but let's go deeper. Æthelfrith wasn't just a conqueror, he was a strategist. He created alliances through marriage, intimidation, and fear. He understood geography better than any ruler before him. He placed fortresses at crucial passes and river crossings. He controlled trade routes from Scotland to the Humber. One historian said, "Where Æthelfrith passed, kingdoms trembled." He died in battle, but he left behind a united Northumbria. 2. Oswald, the Saint King. Oswald is often painted as gentle. But do not be mistaken, he was a warrior king with a vision. Raised in exile, fluent in Gaelic, spiritually influenced by Iona's monks, Oswald returned with the perfect blend of faith and steel. He defeated the powerful King Cadwallon in a dramatic battle, where he planted a wooden cross in the ground the night before and prayed for victory. Northumbrians believed. Oswald won because heaven fought beside him. He became a symbol of unity, faith, and righteous rule. His short reign left a long shadow. 3. Oswiu, the diplomat king. Oswald's brother, Oswiu, was cunning. He played rival kingdoms against each other with political genius. He defeated the mighty Mercian King Penda in the Battle of Winwade, a turning point in Anglo-Saxon history. He strengthened Northumbria's dominance and helped shape English Christianity through the Synod of Whitby, choosing Roman Christianity over Celtic traditions. His decision would echo through the next 1,000 years. 4. Æthelfrith, the Scholar King. Æthelfrith wasn't raised as a warrior. He was raised among monks and poets in Ireland. When he unexpectedly became king, many expected him to fail. But instead, Northumbria entered a cultural golden age. Under his rule, monasteries grew, scholars thrived, art flourished, peace stabilized the kingdom. Æthelfrith showed that knowledge could strengthen a kingdom as much as swords. 5. Bloodaxe, the last king. Yes, the final ruler of Northumbria was a Viking, a legendary warrior, a king feared across the north. A man with a name that sounded like a horror story. Bloodaxe took the throne in a chaotic period. His reign was short, violent, and dramatic. But when he died, around 954 AD, it marked the official end of the independent kingdom of Northumbria. A Viking king closed the final chapter of an Anglo-Saxon empire. History has a sense of poetic irony. Let me know in the comments which king fascinates you the most. No ancient kingdom is complete without legends, and Northumbria's myths are some of the most haunting in England. Here are some of the chilling tales that locals pass down through generations. 1. The spectral king of Bamburgh. People claimed that on stormy nights, the ghost of a Northumbrian king would walk along the castle walls, staring out at the sea, waiting for a ship that never returned. Some say it was Oswald. Others say it was a forgotten prince. Either way, the legend still whispers along the coast. 2. The Lindisfarne lantern. Fishermen swore they saw a ghostly blue light floating over Lindisfarne at night. Some believed it was the spirit of a monk protecting buried relics. Others believed it was the embodiment of the island's ancient soul. Even today, people claim to see strange lights on the island. 3. The cursed warrior of York. A tale tells of a Viking warrior who betrayed his people and was cursed to wander the streets of York for eternity. Locals said that if you walked alone at night, you might hear his dragging footsteps behind you. York is still considered one of the most haunted cities in England, and many say this legend is the reason. If you want an entire episode just on Northumbrian myths and ghost stories, let me know. I can make that happen. A powerful kingdom doesn't rise without resources. Northumbria controlled. Sheep farms producing wool for trade. Ironworking villages. Salt-making centers along the coast. Rich fisheries. Trade routes linking Ireland, Scandinavia, and continental Europe. Monks recorded payments in silver, wool, grain, swords, cattle, even honey. Northumbria's wealth wasn't just in gold, it was in connectivity. This kingdom was plugged into the early medieval economy like a northern powerhouse. No wonder neighboring kingdoms feared it. If this economic side interests you, smash that like button. It tells me to include more in-depth world building in future scripts. Northumbrians lived at the crossroads of two worlds. The warrior tradition of the pagan Angles, and the Christian vision of peace and salvation. This blend created a unique culture. They feared the wrath of forgotten gods but prayed to Christ. They sang pagan heroic poems but illuminated Christian manuscripts. They traded with Vikings but fought them fiercely. They built halls for feasting and silence-filled cloisters for study. Northumbria was a world of contradictions. And contradictions create greatness. We are still building toward the next major parts. The code of honor among Northumbrian warriors. The secrets of their battle tactics. The lives of monks who preserved civilization. The greatest political betrayals in the kingdom's history. The hidden archaeology under modern cities. The dramatic final century before Northumbria's collapse. And the long-term legacy that shaped the identity of Northern England. This story is only halfway complete. If you want to understand Northumbria, you must understand its warriors. These were not knights in shining armor. They were shield wall fighters, men who lived by a code more ancient than the kingdom itself. Their world was shaped by one word: loyalty. To a Northumbrian warrior, loyalty wasn't just a virtue. It was a survival strategy. A warband was a family forged by danger. You ate together, trained together, fought together. And if fate turned against you, you died together. Their code demanded three things. 1. Stand in the shield wall, no matter what. A shield wall was life. A shield wall was death. Imagine the battlefield. Dozens of men packed shoulder to shoulder. Long wooden shields overlapping like scales. Spears pointing forward like the teeth of a giant animal. Once you stepped into the line, you could not back away. Turning your back meant shame worse than death. Northumbrians believed, a man lives as long as his shield stands. This formation made them one of the most feared forces in early medieval Britain. 2. Loyalty to the Lord above all. A warrior's greatest duty was loyalty to his lafford, his lord. If your lord died, you were expected to fight to the end. To abandon him was an unforgivable dishonor. A Northumbrian poem says, "Better the sword than the shame." Because a warrior without honor was not truly alive. 3. Earn glory in battle. Material wealth mattered, but glory mattered more. Stories of courage were passed down for generations. Bards sang them in long halls lit by fire. Your name could outlive kingdoms if you fought with courage. And Northumbrian warriors believed this deeply. Drop a like if you want a separate video on early medieval battle tactics. The shield wall alone could fill an entire episode. How Northumbrians trained for war. Training wasn't formal like in modern armies. It was woven into everyday life. Young boys learned to throw spears. They practiced with wooden swords. They wrestled for strength. They hunted to sharpen their instincts. By adulthood, every man was expected to know how to fight, know how to hold a shield, know how to protect his family, know how to stand in formation. This wasn't optional, it was survival. And because of this culture, Northumbria produced some of the most disciplined warriors on the island. Northumbrian commanders were known for 3 major tactics. 1. The ambush on narrow terrain. Northumbria's hills and moors were perfect for ambush warfare. Commanders studied the land like master chess players. They lured enemies into narrow passes, then unleashed warriors from hidden positions. This tactic was used many times against the Britons, Scots, and Picts. 2. The hammer and anvil. A classic move. A solid shield wall fixed the enemy in place. A second group swept around to strike the flank. This maneuver broke weaker armies instantly. It required discipline and timing. 2 things Northumbrians excelled at. 3. The fast strike. Northumbrians used speed as a weapon. Their small warbands could move quickly across rough ground. They hit hard, fast, and disappeared into the landscape. This made them unpredictable and terrifying. If you're enjoying these tactical insights, comment warrior culture so I know you want a dedicated breakdown in future videos. While warriors protected the land, monks protected the mind. Northumbrian monasteries were like early universities, hubs of learning, translation, art, and science. Let's step inside one. Inside a monastery, a day in the life. At dawn, monks woke to the sound of a wooden bell. They prayed. They worked. They wrote. In the scriptorium, the writing room, silence ruled. You would hear nothing but the scratch of quills, the rustle of parchment, the drip of ink. These monks copied texts that preserved ancient Roman knowledge. Sometimes they wrote by candlelight until their eyes burned. Their work saved entire fields of science, philosophy, and theology. Without Northumbrian monks, Europe might have lost priceless knowledge forever. The secret behind their art. Northumbrian monks created some of the most breathtaking manuscripts ever made. They used inks mixed from minerals, pigments from crushed gemstones, gold leaf hammered thinner than a breath, glowing designs inspired by Celtic, Germanic, and Mediterranean art. Each book took years. Some took decades. This wasn't just writing. This was devotion. And the greatest masterpiece, the Lindisfarne Gospels, was created during one of the most unstable periods in the kingdom's history. Greatness often emerges from struggle. Northumbria's downfall wasn't only because of the Vikings. It was because its royal families fought constant civil wars. Let's uncover 3 of the most shocking betrayals. 1. The murder of King Oswine. Oswine was a beloved Deiran king, but Oswiu, Oswald's brother, saw him as a threat to unity. The 2 met to negotiate peace. Oswine arrived with a small escort, trusting the meeting would be honorable. Oswiu's men killed him. England never forgot this betrayal. 2. The rise and fall of King Æthelwald. Æthelwald was installed by Penda of Mercia as a puppet king. But when Penda died, Northumbrian nobles abandoned Æthelwald instantly. He was executed for disloyalty. Loyalty was everything, but it vanished the moment it became inconvenient. 3. The assassination of Osred. Osred was young, ambitious, charismatic, and murdered by his own nobles in a political coup. His death signaled the beginning of the end. Northumbria was tearing itself apart before enemies even arrived. If these betrayals shocked you, let me know in the comments. I can create a whole episode on Northumbrian political drama. From the mid-700s to the mid-800s, Northumbria slowly disintegrated. Here's how. Kings lasted only months. Rival families assassinated each other. Monasteries were raided. The economy weakened. Viking activity intensified. Fortresses fell in quick succession. Local leaders gained too much power. York became unstable and divided. It was like watching a great oak rot from the inside. By the time the great heathen army arrived, Northumbria was already wounded beyond healing. The Vikings delivered the final blow, but the kingdom had dug its own grave. Archaeology. What was found beneath modern cities? Archaeologists have uncovered treasures that tell Northumbria's story in ways books cannot. Let's explore a few. The Bamburgh sword, found near the fortress of Bamburgh. A high-carbon steel blade. Deadly. Beautiful. Advanced for its time. Proof that Northumbrian smiths were elite craftsmen. The Coppergate helmet, York helmet. A fully preserved Anglo-Saxon helmet with intricate designs. One of the best examples in all of Europe. It tells us, Northumbrians valued protection. They valued symbolism. They invested heavily in war gear. Anglian crosses and stone art. Dozens of carved crosses show the blend of pagan and Christian symbolism. Snakes, dragons, Celtic knots, Christian saints. All intertwined. Viking mixed culture layers in York. When archaeologists dug into York, they found Anglo-Saxon houses, Viking streets, Norse pottery, English coins, blended burial practices. The city became a hybrid world, a living museum of cultural fusion. If you love archaeological discoveries, smash that like button. I can create a separate deep dive on every artifact. We are still moving toward the final, dramatic chapters. The last shadow years. The fall of Jórvík. The absorption into England. The hidden stories of the last Northumbrians. And the cinematic final legacy that ties everything together. As Northumbria weakened, a new generation grew up in a world unlike the golden age their ancestors knew. Imagine being a child in York around the year 850. Your grandfather remembered kings like Osred and Eadbert. Your father remembered when the monasteries were untouched and the land was peaceful. But you were born into chaos. Your lullabies were stories of Viking raids. Your prayers were whispered faster. Your nights were filled with the fear of distant horns. And yet, these children grew tough. They were raised in a world where danger was constant, where every day required resilience. They became skilled in farming, hunting, crafting, trading, defending their homes. They belonged to a kingdom already half swallowed by shadows. But they did not give up. This final generation would be the last to call themselves true Northumbrians. Before the great heathen army arrived, Viking raids were seasonal, like terrible storms that came and went. But after the 860s, they changed strategy. The Vikings stopped raiding. They started settling. They brought families, traders, craftsmen, livestock, and most importantly, chiefs who wanted land. The north became a mosaic of cultures. English villages, Norse farmsteads, mixed communities speaking both languages, trade ports buzzing with Scandinavian goods. This wasn't just invasion. This was transformation. And Northumbria could not keep up. The old Anglo-Saxon system was aging. The new Viking system was rising. Land ownership shifted. Local lords changed allegiance. Merchants traded with whoever offered the best profit. The kingdom was slowly slipping away, not with an explosion, but with a slow, unstoppable tide. Drop a like if you're fascinated by how cultures merge. This part of history is one of the richest. The fall of royal power, kingdom without a king. By the early 900s, Northumbria barely had functioning kings. Sometimes 2 men claimed the throne. Sometimes none. Sometimes the king was a puppet of Mercia. Other times, he was a puppet of Vikings. Royal authority existed on parchment, but not in reality. The church tried to step in, but it was exhausted from decades of raids and instability. Noble families fought like wolves. Local warlords gained more power than the throne itself. The kingdom was a crown in search of a head. And this vacuum of leadership opened the door for the final act. York, once the beating heart of Northumbria, became Jórvík, a city of markets filled with furs, shipbuilders hammering planks, traders from Norway, Denmark, Ireland, and Scotland, craftsmen carving bone and amber, blacksmiths forging axes and swords, storytellers reciting sagas under firelight, children running barefoot in narrow alleys. It was a fusion of worlds. Archaeologists found evidence of Norse-style houses, Anglo-Saxon pottery, silver hoards, Roman ruins repurposed, Christian crosses beside pagan charms. Jórvík was not the end of Northumbria. It was the beginning of something new, a hybrid identity. But even this vibrant new world could not last forever. While Jórvík flourished, northern Northumbria, around Bamburgh, held on like a mountain resisting the wind. The lords of Bamburgh were tough, proud, fiercely independent. They weren't kings by name, but they ruled like kings in spirit. They protected monasteries hiding relics, coastal villages, northern passes, ancient Anglo-Saxon traditions. They knew the kingdom was dying, but they refused to let its memory vanish. Their greatest leader was Æthelfrith of Bamburgh, a man of grit, a warrior raised in the shadow of both Vikings and Scots. He defended what little remained of Northumbrian identity. Without men like Æthelfrith, Northumbria would have vanished far earlier. By the mid-900s, England, united under the kings of Wessex, expanded north. They took back Mercia, East Anglia, parts of Danelaw. Then eventually, they turned to Jórvík. The Viking kings of York fought bravely, but their power was scattered. Norse lords argued among themselves. The Anglo-Saxon army pushed harder each year. And then came the man who delivered the final blow, King Æthelfrith of England. In 954 AD, after decades of conflict, Northumbria was absorbed into the English crown. The last king of Northumbria, the Viking ruler Eric Bloodaxe, was killed in battle or ambushed in a political plot. His death was the final line in the story of the kingdom. No king ever ruled Northumbria again. After 954, the name Northumbria disappeared from political maps, but it survived in ways no conqueror could erase. It lived in the northern accent, the culture of Yorkshire and Northumberland, the old churches still standing on windswept coasts, the stories told by local families, the place names ending in ham, tun, bruff, wick, the manuscripts that shaped the English language, the coastline where monks once walked barefoot in prayer, the ruins of fortresses that still stand against the sky. Northumbria became a ghost kingdom, a spirit woven into northern identity. Even today, the pride of northern England, strong, stubborn, resilient, echoes the heart of the old kingdom. And if you're from the north, drop a comment below. This is your history. Northumbrian mythology and pagan gods. Foods, clothing, and daily customs. Hidden unsolved mysteries. Saints and miracles. The long-term legacy on modern Britain. A cinematic conclusion that ties the entire story together. Before churches, before Latin prayers, before the monks carved crosses into stone, Northumbria followed the gods of the old world. Their religion wasn't written in books. It lived in forests, rivers, standing stones, the night sky, the storms that struck the coast. These ancient gods shaped the culture long before Christianity arrived. Let's step into their pantheon. Woden, the lord of wisdom and kings. Woden, often linked to the Norse Odin, was the chief deity. Northumbrian kings claimed descent from him. Their legitimacy flowed from his bloodline. Woden represented wisdom, war, leadership, fate. To a Northumbrian warrior, Woden meant strength in battle, and the courage to face death without fear. Thuna, the thunderer, the god of storms, lightning, protection. Farmers prayed to Thuna for rain. Warriors called on him for strength. Sailors feared him. One storm could decide life or death. When thunder rolled over Northumbria's cliffs, People believed Thuna was speaking. T, the god of honor. T represented justice, courage, and the warrior code. Battles were fought in his name. Oaths were sworn invoking his judgment. Dishonor was feared because T's punishment was said to follow you beyond death. Eostre, the dawn goddess. Yes, the word Easter comes from her. Eostre represented spring, rebirth, light, the renewal of the land. Her festival was one of the most joyful celebrations of the year. The old spirits. Northumbria's people also believed in water spirits in rivers, guardian spirits protecting households, elves that brought sickness, Draugr-like undead figures haunting battlefields, WRMS, dragons, serpents, sleeping beneath the earth. These beliefs blended into Christian lore later, shaping many English folktales. If you want a whole episode exploring Anglo-Saxon mythology, drop a comment saying Mythology Deep Dive. When Christianity arrived through Oswald and the monks of Iona, it didn't erase the old beliefs overnight. Instead, for nearly 200 years, Northumbria lived in a world where both faiths intertwined, clashed, shaped each other. A warrior might carry a Christian cross for protection, and a pagan amulet for luck. A monk might preach peace, while villagers still whispered offerings to river spirits. This fusion created a unique northern Christianity, one rooted in nature, humility, and scholarship. It's why Northumbria's churches look different, feel different. They were born from a spiritual blending rarely seen elsewhere in Europe. History books rarely tell you what people ate, but food reveals everything about a civilization. So let's sit down at a Northumbrian feast. Breakfast. Most people started the day with bread, porridge, goat cheese, ale or weak beer. Water was often unsafe. Children drank watered ale or milk from goats and sheep. Lunch. A simple meal, often bread, smoked fish, onions, apples, nuts. Dinner, the main meal. This was where the kingdom's heart truly lived. Imagine entering a great hall at night. Fire blazing, meat roasting, dogs lying near the hearth, warriors slamming cups, bards singing heroic poems. A typical feast included roasted pork, mutton stew, eel pies, freshwater fish, vegetables from the garden, thick bread, meads sweetened with honey, ale poured in wooden cups. Northumbria's cuisine was simple but hearty, built for the cold, rugged climate. Clothing. How people dressed in a harsh land. Northumbrians wore clothing built for weather that could turn deadly fast. Men. Wool tunics. Trousers wrapped with leg bindings. Leather boots. Cloaks fastened with ornate brooches. Belts with knives. Every man carried one. Warriors added helmets, long wooden shields, spears, swords, or axes, heavy cloaks, iron armorings symbolizing loyalty. Women. Long wool dresses, linen undergarments, cloaks, decorative brooches, beads traded from across Europe, leather shoes, hair often braided or covered. Women's brooches and beads were powerful status symbols. Unsolved mysteries, the questions that still haunt historians. Northumbria left behind more questions than answers. Let's explore the most intriguing. 1. What happened to the lost royal hoards? Chroniclers mention vast treasures hidden before Viking raids. Gold, jeweled crosses, silver bowls, swords of royal craftsmanship. But many were never found. Some believe they remain buried beneath fields and ruins, waiting for the right discovery. 2. Who betrayed the last kings of York? Eric Bloodaxe's death is shrouded in mystery. Some say he was betrayed by Northumbrian nobles. Others say by rival Vikings. Some claim it was political assassination ordered from the south. No one knows the truth. The silence around his death is suspicious and deliberate. 3. What happened at the monastery of Tynemouth? Archaeologists found signs of sudden abandonment, but no record of why. No bodies. No signs of battle. No Viking artifacts. The monks simply vanished. A mystery lost to time. 4. The ghost village of Warham Percy. One of England's most famous deserted medieval villages is in old Northumbrian territory. Bones discovered there show signs of ritual cutting, burning, dismemberment. Not violence, but something done after death. Some believe villagers feared the dead rising. Others believe it was an ancient purification ritual. We still don't know. If you want a full video on Anglo-Saxon mysteries, drop a comment below. I can turn each one into a standalone episode. Northumbria produced some of the most influential saints in early English history. Let's meet a few. Saint Cuthbert, the miracle worker. Cuthbert walked the Northumbrian coast performing acts people believed were miracles. Stories say he healed the sick, calmed storms, foretold invasions, spoke with animals, prayed in freezing water while otters warmed his feet. When he died, his coffin was carried across Northumbria during Viking invasions. The monks refused to leave him behind. His shrine became one of the most sacred in medieval England. Saint Aidan, the gentle reformer. Aidan founded Lindisfarne. He traveled from village to village teaching, feeding the poor, and earning deep respect. Even kings listened to him. He shaped northern Christianity into a gentler, more compassionate movement. Saint Bede, the historian of England. The great scholar who preserved the island's early history. Without Bede, English history would be missing its foundation. These saints were not just religious icons. They were symbols of hope in a violent age. By the 950s, the kingdom was a memory kept alive only by monks and northern families. England absorbed the territory. New laws replaced old customs. New kings replaced old lineages. But the identity, the northern pride, the culture built over centuries, could not be erased. Northumbrians were too stubborn, too proud, too deeply rooted. They carried their history forward through stories, traditions, accents, songs, place names, church ruins, manuscripts. The kingdom disappeared, but its soul lived on. Imagine standing on the cliffs of Northumbria today. Winds sweeping through the grass, seabirds circling above, ruins silhouetted against the sky, waves crashing against the rocks. If you close your eyes, you can still feel it. The echoes of warriors drilling on the beach, the chants of monks inside cold stone walls, the roar of Viking longships splitting the horizon, the footsteps of kings walking through York's ancient streets, the whispers of a forgotten empire. Northumbria is not gone. It's hiding in plain sight. In language, in art, in England's northern identity, in the DNA of the land itself. And now, you are one of the few who truly know the full story. If you're still here, you're a true legend. Hit that like button, subscribe to Dude Historian, and tell me where in the world you're watching from. Your support keeps this history alive. We are close to completing the full 200-minute script. The final sections will cover summary of all eras, emotional closing message, call to action, optional outro narration, bonus hidden facts for your voiceover. Wow, this kingdom really lived an entire lifetime. 1. Birth of the land, pre-500 AD. Before kingdoms, the land itself shaped everything. Tribes fought for territory. Britons resisted Rome. The north was wild, harsh, and untamed. 2. Arrival of the Angles, 500 to 600 AD. Migrant groups from across the North Sea settled and formed. Bernicia Deira, each fiercely independent, each destined to clash. 3. Rise of Æthelfrith, c. 600 to 616. The Iron Warlord. He united Bernicia and Deira through war, creating the foundations of Northumbria. This was the moment the kingdom took its first true breath. 4. Oswald's Golden Generation, 633 to 642. Oswald returned from exile with faith and fire. He united the kingdom spiritually and politically. Lindisfarne rose. Christianity flourished. Northumbria became a beacon of learning. This was the kingdom's heart. 5. Northumbria rules Britain, 650 to 700. The kingdom reached its height, dominating politics, producing legendary scholars, shaping English Christianity, creating masterpieces like the Lindisfarne Gospels. It was the cultural capital of early medieval England. 6. Internal conflict, 700 to 790. Civil wars weakened the crown. Royal families fractured. Monasteries thrived but kings fell rapidly. Cracks began to spread. 7. The Viking storm, 793 to 870. Lindisfarne burned. Raids grew. The great heathen army arrived. York fell. Northumbria splintered. 8. Jórvík and Bamburgh, 870 to 950. Vikings ruled the south. Anglo-Saxon lords ruled the north. A hybrid society emerged, rich with trade and mixed culture. This was the kingdom's ghost form, alive, but fading. 9. The final end, 954. Eric Bloodaxe died. The last king of Northumbria. England absorbed the land. The kingdom ended politically, but not spiritually. 10. Legacy, after 954. Northumbria lived on through art, language, culture, identity, the pride of northern England. A kingdom gone, but never forgotten. If this timeline recap gave you chills, smash that like button. This is the part of the script designed to keep viewers watching to the end. Kings get stories. Warriors get sagas. Monks get manuscripts. But the true backbone of Northumbria was the ordinary people. Let's honor them. 1. The farmers. They fed the kingdom, season after season. Their hands shaped the land more than kings did. 2. The craftsmen. Blacksmiths who forged swords. Potters who shaped clay. Carvers who decorated churches and halls. Their work still survives in museums today. 3. The women of Northumbria. Women with a silent strength. Managing households. Brewing ale. Weaving textiles. Raising children. Preserving oral history. Many were healers, midwives, and advisors behind the scenes. Their story is rarely told, but essential. 4. The traveling bards. These storytellers kept memory alive. Without them, many legends of Northumbria would have vanished. They carried stories like treasure, from hall to hall, village to village. 5. The unnamed defenders. The warriors who died unrecorded. The archers whose arrows were never found. The shieldmen whose names are lost to time. Their sacrifices are the silent bones of history. Treasure hunters and archaeologists have dreamt of these for generations. Somewhere beneath, fields, rivers, ruins, ancient monasteries, collapsed cliffs, abandoned villages, lie treasures still undiscovered. Treasures like jeweled reliquaries hidden before Viking raids, coins stamped with forgotten kings, battle hordes buried in panic, manuscripts smuggled into caves, weapons dropped in marshes, royal jewelry lost in political chaos. Northumbria may yet surprise the world again. If this treasure section got your imagination running, let me know in the comments. I can create an entire video on lost hoards around the world. Now we answer the bigger question. What made Northumbria different from every other Anglo-Saxon kingdom? 3 things. Medium white star 1. It blended power with knowledge. Unlike many kingdoms that focused only on war, Northumbria valued education, spirituality, art, literature. Kings supported monasteries as much as armies. Medium white star 2. It embraced outside influences. Northumbria wasn't afraid of ideas from Ireland, Scandinavia, Rome, Scotland, Europe. It mixed cultures into something uniquely northern. Medium white star 3. It had a spiritual identity. From Lindisfarne to Jarrow, Northumbria wasn't just a kingdom. It was a sanctuary of learning. This is why historians call it the light of the north. And now, by telling this story, you help keep that light shining. The sky pale and vast. The sea rolling like a restless giant. The ruins of Lindisfarne standing against the wind. Take a breath. This is where kings prayed. Where monks wrote history. Where warriors returned from battle. Where longships appeared on the horizon. Where a kingdom rose, ruled, fell, and transformed. Northumbria may be gone, but its echoes remain. In the stones, in the wind, in the voices of northern people, in the pages of history, in every story ever told about England's beginnings. You didn't just watch a video. You walk through a forgotten world. And that world now lives inside you. And if you've stayed all the way to this moment, you, my friend, are a true historian of the Dude Historian tribe. So do this. Hit that like button if this journey moved you. Comment where in the world you're watching from. I reply to as many as I can. Subscribe, because we have more forgotten kingdoms coming. The Kingdom of Aksum, the Empire of Srivijaya, the Lost Cities of the Sahara, the Armenian Highland Story, the Rise and Collapse of the Hittites, and dozens more. This community is growing, and you're part of it.